Hey, what's up, you guys? I'm Sean David, and welcome back to BTM, to the Basketball Time Machine, your favorite old school NBA show. Before I'm going to introduce today's guest, just a little reminder, if you want to hear more podcasts like this one, just make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the notifications button so you always get notified once we upload a new podcast. All right, so today's guest played in the NBA from 1986 until 1988. Chris Washburn, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sean, for having me. Thank you very much.
Chris, I'm actually pretty curious. Are you still involved with basketball some way, somehow?
I am, mostly from the sidelines. I have sons that's playing, one that's actually in the NBA, two that's playing, actually one is overseas, and one is like in a little lower developmental league, NBA here in North Carolina. And then also I travel around and speak about my story and my journey as well.
Okay, I see. So your son is called Chris Jr., right?
No. I have one that's Chris Jr., but he's overseas somewhere in the Russia area. But the one that's actually in the NBA is named Julian Washburn, and he's with the Memphis Grizzlies number 4.
Oh, okay. How come I didn't know that? Okay. I gotta be honest, I don't follow today's NBA. I'm a basketball historian. For me, NBA basically stopped after 2005.
Understood. You know, but then again, you can watch good basketball now overseas. You don't have to watch the NBA for good basketball.
Absolutely. So my next question would have been, okay, where do your sons have the talent from? But I think that's pretty obvious. So I think the gene passed on to your sons. Do you coach them or train them when they were younger?
You know what? I'm gonna say no, Sean, because for some reason, guys that are good, it's hard for them to go back and coach. Kids that's trying to figure it out. My patience was short, so it was best at a younger age for me to let guys that were trained to do that handle that. Now, as they got older, I could show them a little more, and as they got better, I could actually just tell them things to do, and they could go out and work on it. But again, just from the standpoint of the side, I did coach. I never coached my own kids.
Okay. So, we just talked about your sons. Do you remember at what age you started to play basketball?
Actually, basketball was my second sport. I started off playing football, but basketball came around third or fourth grade here, and because I was one of the tallest kids in the neighborhood, I didn't have a choice because the guy came to my house and told my mom, "Your son's going to play basketball," and I had no saying on this, so that's where I started at.
Oh man, crazy. Okay, but I guess at some point you still fell in love with the game, right?
I did because as I was growing, after the 6th grade, I was 6 foot and I was the running back for my elementary football team. But something happened over the summer. I went to a basketball camp, which was my first camp, and when I came back home, believe it or not, that's only 3-month difference that we're out for the summer here in the States. And when I went back to school that fall, I was 6'7". So I grew 7 inches in 3 months. And so when I went to my junior high, thinking I'm going to still be a running back, they changed me immediately to wide receiver. And I didn't like that. I did not like that. And after my 7th grade, I actually stopped playing football after my 8th grade. I was 6'8", and they would throw the ball, but believe it or not, my hands were not that good, and I missed a lot more than I caught. And also just probably just being nervous out there. But after the 8th grade, I kind of gave football up and just solely started focusing on basketball.
Okay. So you grew up in North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken. How was it back in the days growing up over there?
North Carolina, it was fine for, I'm an only child, I'm a country boy. And so, everybody that I knew would go to the field to play. We had some guys here with some Division I players, a lot of guys with mid-major schools here. And so when I went to the gym, because of my size, like I said, 7th, 8th grade, I was already one of the tallest kids in the city. So, but I was only like 14, so I would have to go out there and play with grown men. And you know, no grown man is gonna let no 14-year-old show him up. And so a lot of times I went home bloody, scratched up, and you know, to the point where my mom told me I couldn't play with those guys, those older guys anymore, because they were just too rough. And you know, but for some reason I just kept going, and then the scratches started getting less, and then my game started getting better, mainly because I got quicker because I want them guys hitting me, so I would move a lot faster. So that kind of paid off as I got older.
Okay. Well, pretty interesting motivation to get faster, to get hit.
Well, you got to understand, I was an only child, and also my mom told me when I was young I couldn't fight. So there was this one family, it was 2 brothers and 2 cousins, and they were a lot smaller than me, but because my mom said I couldn't fight, they always picked on me. I always had to run home after school. I just take off running because they'd be at the end of the school block waiting on me. So I get my speed up, and I shoot past them, and they were small, but they couldn't catch me. So that's when my actual speed started running home, because I couldn't fight nobody, and I didn't want people just hitting on me and stuff. So that's where the speed started. The quickness came. The quickness came on the court from dodging blows. So that's just the difference.
Interesting. In 1984, you were listed as one of the top 3 high school recruits, next to Denny Manning and John Hartwell Williams. And you played college ball for North Carolina State. Why did you choose to play for North Carolina State?
Believe it or not, it wasn't a choice. It wasn't like NC State was my favorite college team, because, believe it or not, I've never, even to this day, really watched sports on TV until it's like a playoff game, or, you know, like with the NBA series, finals going on. I really don't watch regular season sports. So, when it came down to college, I mean, although I still consider myself being the #1 player in the country at that time. I was getting hit from, you know, it's a little different now than it was back then. Coaches could contact you almost anytime they wanted to. And then we didn't have caller ID on my phone, so we had to always answer it, and there'd be a coach on the other end. We didn't get smart till later on about the caller ID, and I could kind of avoid the phone calls. But I'd gotten so bombarded with different schools calling and stuff that going into my senior year, I was just burnt out with talking. So if you ever check your records, I was the first top player to sign this senior year, and I signed before school even started. I signed on the first day and got it over with. And what had happened was, I just told my mom, whoever, because they were coming in, this is when coaches come visit you. So we had like 5 set up for one day. And I think after the 3rd or 4th one, I was kind of tired. And so I told my mom, whoever comes in next, I don't care who it is, I'm going to sign with them. Didn't care. It could have been a Division III school. I was just tired of talking to coaches. And so NC State came in. And I told Coach V at that time, he had an assistant coach named Roberto Marco, this is y'all day. And they was like, why? I said, because I'm signing with you. And that was it. I signed a letter of intent, and I went into my bedroom. They were making their phone calls. They were hoorahing and talking to my mom and my dad at that point in time, and they left. And the next school, which was still big on my list, was Virginia Tech, and they were coming in next. Now, their vision was still on. Nobody knew I'd already signed, because it wasn't like now where you have the internet and all that stuff and one little post just across the country. So they still came to the house, and when they got there, my mom told me I'd already signed. And that was the first time I seen grown men cry, you know, and you know, so I felt kind of bad. So I was, you know, I understand now, I'm 6'11", so I crawled out my bedroom window, jumped on my moped, and I took off, you know, and them jokers still found me later on in my little season and still try to convince me to withdraw that letter of intent and still give them a shot. But you know, I just stayed on with the NC State original agreement.
Wow, that's a crazy story, man. Actually, you could be happy that North Carolina, that you agreed to them. Just imagine you would have ended up on some crappy college. So at the end,
but you know what?
I think it was good that it was North Carolina.
But my thing is, it really didn't matter. See, my thing, I'm glad that I went to State because, you know, Then I had the Carolinas coming after me in the other big schools. And I've always thought it was good to, when those teams are kind of stacked, I like to beat those kind of teams. So, again, like I said, I wouldn't, a lot of these teams now like to stack the deck. Back then, if I was the only guy on the team scoring, that's how I liked it. It didn't really matter to me because my biggest thing was beating the best. So I didn't have to have all the best with me. If you could play a little bit, I could bring you on the rest of the way. So that was my mindset back then.
Okay. Well, you had some pretty good teammates on your team. I mean, quite a few made it to the NBA. I mean, you had Vinny the Negro, you had Nate McMilan. Spud Webb was on your team too, right?
Spud Webb, Chucky Brown, Charles Shackelford. Charles Shackelford was there. Lorenzo Charles, Cosdale McQueen. These were all guys I had an opportunity to play with. And still again, we still were not considered the best. The Carolinas and the Dukes were still the best. So it was an actual good fit for me because it gave me a chance to actually, make a name for myself.
Mm-hmm. So who was your best buddy on your college team?
Me and Nate McMilan. You saw one, you saw the other. And again, I think mainly because after my freshman year, I got in trouble trying to do things my way. And so I had to sit out my freshman year. So I came back my sophomore year. I had to get with someone that was a little more stable and a little more grounded. And with Nate being from the Raleigh area where we were in school at, I felt safe being with him. Then also, he wasn't one of the guys who was all the running around and, trying to find trouble. He was a little more stable, and being a little older didn't hurt either.
Mm-hmm. Did you expect Nate to become such a great defender on NBA level?
You know what? I never really thought about it. I knew Nate could play because I played against him once when I was in high school. He was in junior college, but I was at a prep school, so I had an opportunity to play with him. At that time, that's when he told me he was going to state too. But as far as because we never thought that big. I never thought anything past college to say. Now, once he started playing in the league, again, I didn't know he was going to be as successful as he was. He became the sixth man, I think, 1 or 2 years for the NBA. And then, just after that, it kind of took off. And then once I saw him on the coaching staff, it kind of looked like he's supposed to have been there. And so I guess the fit was right for him.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I'm really curious about, since you played with him before he was in the NBA, did you know that Spud could dunk the way he did at the slam dunk contest that he won?
I knew Spud could dunk because I understand that was the year I was suspended. I got suspended from the team, and me and Spud only got a chance to actually play 10 games during the season together, and we were 10-0. And then after I got suspended, they went on a little downward spiral. They lost like the next 7 games. But I was still going to practice, and then after practice, my only thing I could really do was dunk. So me and Spud would dunk after practice against each other. You know what I'm saying? And it was still just amazing to me just to watch this little joker jump up because I could see his feet leave the ground, and then next thing I know, he hanging on the rim. I'm like, what happened with that space in between there? Where did he go? Because it was like just so quick. You know what I'm saying? But again, I did not know that, he had all of the dunks he was doing in the NBA. He wasn't doing those in college. But he said, but he didn't just surprise me, as I say, he surprised the world, like Muhammad Ali would say. He shook up the world back then.
Let's talk about the 1986 NBA draft. You were the 3rd pick. You were selected by the Golden State Warriors. What were your expectations before you got drafted?
Definitely, I was supposed to be number 1. That was my expectations. I talked with Philadelphia, and they kind of told me they were going to pick me number 1 just to keep that to myself. And because at that time, Philadelphia had the number 1 pick, and then it was Boston, then Golden State. But Philadelphia traded their pick to Cleveland, and because Cleveland at that time was like number 7 or number 8, I didn't go to their workout, you know what I'm saying? Because my agent already told me I was going to be gone way before, 7 and 8. But when Cleveland made that switch and took number one, Brad went to the workout down in Cleveland, and so they took him. So that was telling me right then that Brad already knew he wasn't supposed to be number one, because he was already trying out for teams 6 and 7, 8. I didn't go lower than 3, and that was Golden State. I tried out for Golden State. I didn't even try out for Boston because at that time Boston didn't have any money. At that time they only had like $1 million to give because they just signed Bird all that money. So I didn't go to Boston because I didn't want them actually picking me. Well, that's what the agent was saying, because they didn't have any money to give. But like I said, Philadelphia had the first pick, and that was my sole mindset. And then I didn't know anything about the trade until draft day when they came up with the first pick that Philadelphia just traded their pick to Cleveland. I was like, I ain't going to no Cleveland, and in my mind, but because I thought because I was going number one, I was going to the number one team. Whoever number one team was, that's where I was going. But with Cleveland taking that pick, they took Brad, and then Boston went on and took Len. I knew it was a good chance I could end up in Golden State. And like I said, that's where I ended up going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you already mentioned the first pick. The second pick was Len Bias. Yeah, one of the most tragic stories in NBA history. Do you remember when you got told that he died?
Yeah. Because I just seen Len 2 days prior. We got drafted on a Tuesday. I think June 17th, if I'm not mistaken. And then Len was dead June 19th. And so, that was really the actual first ball player that I knew had died, and then an actual friend of mine, and so it was a step back for a young guy because I was just 20 at that time. And like I said, me and Len had talked a lot via phone and hung out a couple of times up in the Maryland area after we played them. But, like I said, at that time I was already kind of dabbling like he was in the drug scene. And see, my thing was, well, I just don't do as much as he probably did. My mindset was totally different than I better just leave this stuff alone. But again, it was an eye opener. But again, once you're addicted or hooked to something, that's only short lived to say. Because I would say after about a month or so, I was back and fully active again at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty glad that you touched that topic because, especially in the 70s and the 80s, there were many players who were, taking drugs, cocaine, and you name it. And I think way more players took drugs than everybody knows.
Right.
So you had to go through a lot, especially in your NBA days. I mean, in your rookie season, you played only 35 games. You had you were battling the tinnitus in your knee, plus also the cocaine addiction. At that time, how tough was life in those 2 NBA years? How tough was life for you as a person, for you as a human being?
Let me just say like this. I had gotten a news article that said that Chris Washburn will be dead by before he's 25 years old. At that time, I was 21. And, and that's just, well, I didn't recognize how bad I was going. Now, the tendonitis, again, they would bring different things in. You just say that because they got tired of saying that he's doing drugs again. I never had problems with the knees or anything like that. It was just I was off on a drug binge or something like that. Now, again, for a guy that only played, I played right at 3 years, and I'm still arguing with the NBA about that. But for a guy to have done all this stuff, I had a $25 to $3,000 habit a day. For years, even after I got out of the NBA. But my main thing was that I've gotten hooked up with some stuff that I didn't fully understand what I was getting myself involved with. Now, the hardest part was I got started with athletes. Now, these are, a young guy, you walk into a room, and guys is doing something, and you don't want to seem like you're not cool and you're not down.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to, show them that you want to hang with them.
All right, you guys, that was part one. Still more interesting stories to come. Stay tuned.